person they're interviewing is saying, it's not going to make any sense at the end. So they'll have to go back and clarify everything again. Excuse me. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Kadashian? Is that right? He had just some different information about interviewing and listening skills. On average, we speak about 125 words per minute, and that's a lot if you think about it. And then we read and understand anywhere from 300 to 500 words in a minute. And then in between all of that, from speaking and like listening and understanding, there's a dead time. And this is basically a time that he described as like the listener becomes very distracted, and it gives them a chance to kind of get their mind off of what you're talking about, and they may start thinking about other things. And then the next thing that he goes on to say is how to listen effectively. And it gave the same stats with the speech, 125 words and 300 to 500 words per minute to understand. And with that, with the effective listening, he said to use that dead time when no one's talking and just kind of like letting everything settle in your mind. Use that to start asking questions. Don't let it be just like a silence between you and the person that you're talking to. Get involved back in the conversation. So there's not time for the person to start thinking of other things and then get off topic. Okay, and this is moving into Gorgon's 4 techniques. The first one is active listening, and he recommended to listen actively when you're listening to someone that has a problem, because you don't want to sit there and not say a word and just have them list out everything that's wrong, and then at the end just say, okay, you can go, or whatever. It's one of those things where you need to be involved, ask a lot of questions, make sure that you're understanding what the problem is, what you can do to help them with that problem, and things like that. So just be active. And then response includes either reflecting feelings or restating content. So after the conversation is over, just kind of reflect on everything that happened, go through the whole conversation again, the problem, and make sure that both people are on the same page and just both understand. And then the next one is iMessage. Sorry, let me go to the page. Under the iMessages section, it talks about you messages, and then under that it talks about solution messages and put down messages. But on page 159 it says, an iMessage says that you trust the group member to respect your needs and to handle the situation constructively. So it's just kind of, you're putting yourself out there, you're understanding, like you're trusting the people around you, you're trusting the group that you're in. And then, excuse me, right. The you message, it says, another group member may irritate or criticize you, may remain silent and you may remain silent and irritated, or send a you message. So a you message is like you're keeping it to yourself. You may not want to come out and say, hey, you're like whatever you said or whatever you did is really bothering me. So you're just keeping it inside of you. And there's 2 types, like I said, 2 types of you messages. The solution message and the put down message. A solution message orders, directs, commands, warns, threatens, preaches, moralizes, or advises. And then a put down message blames, judges, criticizes, rules, or ridicules or name calls. And then like the iMessage, with that, it's like you're not blaming someone for the message. Non-blaming message that communicates how the sender of the message believes the receiver is affecting the sender. And then it doesn't provide a solution. So having these messages, even if you're like with a you message, with you're keeping it inside of you, you're not going to find a solution to it without talking about it, without getting it out. And even with an iMessage, it may be hard to find like a good solution to whatever is happening. And they show that you can trust, or iMessages show that you can trust group members, and you're less likely to produce arguments. And then collision of values. Excuse me. The first thing that it talks about is conflict, and I mean, there's no way to avoid conflict. It comes up in every day, and I just got on an RA meeting before this, and that was one of the things that we were talking about was conflict. Like, how do you handle different conflict, and to what extent do you have to go to, so it's not like you're always being the person that's confronting the conflict, and you're not being the person that just kind of avoids conflict. There has to be a balance between how much you step in and how much you just sit back and watch everything like unfold. And then some of the examples that it gave for conflict is, I mean, it's things that we still hear about every day: abortion, sexual behavior, clothing, religion, use of drugs, hairstyles, and carrying out group tasks. Which the carrying out group tasks isn't necessarily something that we hear about every day, but everything that's talking about with like the interpersonal communication and just everything, it's really important that if there is conflict with people not pulling their weight in a group, or like people slacking off, it's important to confront them and like not just let it slide under the door and not be taken care of. Three constructive ways to resolve conflict or value conflicts. Model the values you hold as important. What you believe shouldn't change just because someone else believes something different. Just stay strong to what you believe is the right thing. Attempt to be a consultant to the members with whom you're in conflict, and then so just kind of understand what their values are, and then modify your values. It's not saying change your values, so still have your core beliefs, but in situations with the conflict, you have to understand how the other person feels in that situation. And then lastly, in the this kind of goes into chapter 6. It's the no-lose problem solving, and I'm not going to touch a lot on that since it is in chapter 6, but no-lose problem solving asserts that it is almost always possible for both sides to have their needs met in conflict situations. And then there's two like big things under that, two basic things. It says all people have the right to have their needs met, and what is in the conflict between the two sides is almost never their needs, but their solutions to those needs. And then it had 6 steps to the no-lose problem-solving approach. Those are up here. Identify and define the needs of each opposing side. Generate possible alternative solutions. Evaluate the alternative solutions. Decide on the best acceptable solutions. Work out ways to implementing the solutions, and evaluate how it worked. So, I mean, that's further in chapter 6, so we'll get into that, I guess, whenever the next group goes. But that's the end of verbal communication. So we'll finish next time with the nonverbal communication.
All right.